Good. Okay. Hello. Welcome to our sourdough bread thing. So these are some of the things that we're going to be going over today. We're going to do an introduction, the science behind sourdough, making a sourdough starter, feeding your sourdough starter, baking techniques, and some recipes to get started. How can a nation be great if its bread tastes like Kleenex? Introduction to sourdough. History and cultural significance. Let's start with the story of sourdough, a bread-making tradition that goes back thousands of years to ancient Egypt around 3000 BC. Before commercial yeast existed, bakers harnessed wild yeast and bacteria from the air to leaven their dough, creating bread with a unique tangy flavor. This method traveled the world, from medieval European monasteries to the gold rush miners in San Francisco, where sourdough became iconic. Each culture added its own twist, using local grains and techniques to make their own loaves. Today's sourdough is more than bread, it's a craft that links us to our past. So why do so many people fall in love with baking it? Let's find out.
3,000 years ago, where were the Jews in the How long ago was that? I think that's what I would say it's just before. Hold on, I'm trying to say that just before. Just before. I think most of them up to 78. By memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was around. That was the leavening when they said don't eat leavened bread. They were in South. Basically, they're saying don't eat salad.
Yeah.
That was their punishment. That they had to go too quick, so you have to eat non-sourdough bread. Okay, so science behind sourdough. So first up is the fermentation process. So at the heart of sourdough is fermentation, which is a magical dance between wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria in a simple mix of flour and water. The yeast eats sugars in the flour, producing carbon dioxide that makes the dough rise and creates the airy holes that we love. At the same time, the bacteria produces lactic acid, which gives it its tangy taste and its chewy texture. It can take from 12 to 24 hours, which is much slower than commercial yeast, but at the same time, that builds complex flavors. The bacteria also breaks down starches, making nutrients easier for our bodies to absorb. It's like a tiny ecosystem in your kitchen, working together to create something delicious. Isn't it amazing how nature does all the heavy lifting? And so comparing sourdough and commercial yeast. Unlike commercial yeast, which is one single lab-grown strain to make dough that rises fast, sourdough relies on a diverse mix of wild microbes, which makes it slower and richer. Commercial yeast breads can be ready in a few hours, but they often lack the deep, tangy flavor of sourdough. Slow fermentation, which is sometimes even a full day, builds a chewier texture and a crustier exterior that's hard to beat. It also creates an open, strong crumb structure, which the big holes are perfect for soaking up butter. Plus, sourdough's natural process feels more like an art than a shortcut. If you've ever tasted warm sourdough slice, you know why it's worth the wait. So what makes it healthier too? So some health benefits are that sourdough isn't just tasty, it's got some health perks that set it apart. The long fermentation breaks down gluten, which can make it easier to digest for people with mild sensitivities, even though it's technically not gluten-free. Lactic acid bacteria act like probiotics, boosting your gut health by supporting good microbes in your digestive system. It also reduces phytic acid, an anti-nutrient in grains that can block mineral absorption so your body gets more zinc and iron. Some studies even suggest that sourdough has a lower glycemic index, meaning that it won't spike your blood sugar as much as other breads. It's not a superfood, but it's a smart choice for many. Who knew bread could be this good for you?
Making a sourdough starter. Let's go. What is a sourdough starter? A sourdough starter is the soul of your bread, a living mix of flour and water packed with wild yeast and bacteria. It's what makes your dough rise without store-bought yeast, and it's surprisingly simple to create. You're essentially cultivating a mini ecosystem that captures microbes from the air and flour. Each starter develops its own unique flavor, influenced by your local environment and the flour you use. Think of it as a think of it as a pet that needs regular feeding to stay happy. It's the key to every sourdough loaf, and making one is easier than you might think. Ready to start your own? Creating a starter is like a week-long science experiment, and it's super rewarding. Mix 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water in a jar and stir, and let it sit at room temperature for 24 hours. Each day, discard half the mixture and add another 100 grams of flour and water to feed the growing. By day 5 to 7, you'll see bubbles, a doubling in size, and a pleasant sour smell. Signs your starter is alive and ready. Use a kitchen scale for accuracy and keep it in a warm spot around 70 to 80 degrees. If it's sluggish, don't worry. Patience and consistent feeding will get it there. Soon you'll have a starter that's ready to bake with. Types of flour. The flour you choose for your starter shapes its flavor and personality. All-purpose flour is a great starting point, giving a balanced flavor and steady fermentation. Whole wheat or rye flour speeds things up because they're packed with nutrients that microbes love, adding a nutty or earthly taste. For gluten-free bakers, rice or buckwheat flour can work, but they may need extra care to ferment properly. Mixing flours like 50% rye and 50% all-purpose can create a unique starter with complex flavors. Your choice depends on the taste and speed you're after. Feeding your starter. Keeping your starter healthy is all about regular feeding, like giving it a daily meal. If you bake often, keep it at room temperature and feed it daily with a 1:1:1 ratio. Say 50 grams starter, 50 grams flour, and 50 grams water. For occasional bakers, store it in the fridge and feed it once a week to keep it dormant but alive. Before baking, give a refrigerated starter 2 room temperature feedings to feed it up, to wake it up. Consistency is key to a vigorous starter that makes your dough rise beautifully. Adjust based on your schedule, but don't let it go too long without food. It's easier than it sounds once you get the rhythm. You have to feed it like you feed a pet.
I'm going to share with you some information about sourdough from one of my favorite children's books about health called The Nourishing Traditions Cookbook for Children. A sourdough starter is made by mixing flour and water together and letting it ferment for many, many days. This fermented flour becomes full of friendly bacteria, yeasts, and enzymes that are able to break down into easier to digest foods. You only need to go through the process of making the sourdough starter once.
Unless you kill it.
Once made, it will last for as long as needed. If fresh flour and water is added regularly. Daily feeding of your sourdough is good. Your sourdough needs to be fed fresh water and flour daily. Water should be filtered. Before you can feed your sourdough, you need to discard all but approximately a tablespoon. Never throw your daily discard away. Here are some ideas to use it. Sourdough discard recipes: crackers, cookies, cinnamon rolls, pancakes.
So also, Dad, can you go back? Also, if you're just baking any random thing, you can just put in sourdough. Or you can actually find something that it goes with, like a specific recipe. Signs of a healthy starter. A happy starter is full of life, doubling in size within 4 to 8 hours after feeding, with a bubbly, frothy surface. It should smell pleasantly sour, sometimes with fruity or vinegary notes, like a tangy yogurt. If it's sluggish or smells like acetone or cheese, it's hungry. Try more frequently feeding. Try more frequent feedings or a warmer spot. A thin layer of liquid called hooch is normal, and it means it needs feeding. Just stir it back in. With care, even a weak starter can bounce back. Watch these signs, and you'll know your starter is ready to bake. It's like reading your dough's mood. Storage tips. If you're baking daily, keep your starter at room temperature, around 70 to 80 degrees, in a jar with a loose lid. For less frequent baking, pop it in the fridge to slow fermentation, feeding it weekly to keep it alive. Always leave enough headspace in the jar for expansion. Starters can double or triple in size. If hooch forms on top, either stir it in for extra tang or pour it off before feeding. Use a clean jar every few weeks to prevent mold. With these simple steps, your starter can last for years. It's low maintenance once you know the tricks. Baking techniques. Basic steps. Baking sourdough is a journey with 5 key steps that turn flour into a gorgeous loaf. Start by mixing flour, water, salt, and starter into a shaggy dough, then let it ferment for 8 hours, 8 to 12 hours, to build flavor and rise. Wait.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Next, shape the dough into a round or oval loaf, tightening it to create structure. Proof it in a basket for 2 to 12 hours, depending on temperature. To prepare for baking, finally score the dough, which means basically like cut it with a razor blade over the top. And bake it at 450 degrees, ideally in a Dutch oven for a crusty golden loaf. Each step is a chance to refine your craft. Trust me, the smell of fresh sourdough is worth every minute. And also, there's many different ways, like recipes to make sourdough. Like we use one, and Miss Vicky might use another one because they're just all different.
Let's talk about what kind of flours are best or the most healthy to use when making your sourdough. Freshly ground flour is best because it's full of enzymes. It's difficult to make a sourdough from old or store-bought flour. Rye flour makes an especially good sourdough because it is high in phytase. Phytase is an enzyme that breaks down phytic acid.
Popular methods. The no-knead method is a beginner's dream. Just mix the dough and let time do the work for a rustic, flavorful loaf. The stretch and fold method involves gently stretching the dough every 30 minutes during bulk fermentation to strengthen gluten and improve structure. Both methods can produce stunning results, but no knead is less hands-on, perfect for busy schedules. Stretch and fold takes a bit more effort, but gives you a loftier, more structured loaf. Try both to see what fits your style. They're like different paths to the same delicious destination. Which one will you try first? Dad, do you want to have Mom do that? Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's just do the stretch and folds now.
So this is a dough that we made a couple hours ago. And the first step when you are making a sourdough is to then, once you've mixed the ingredients, the water, the flour, the starter, and the salt, then you let it sit for an hour to kind of soak all the water up. Then we actually do the stretch and folds because we do like that kind of airier, although I'll be honest, sometimes we have mistakes or times where we've not been able, I've had to leave and we've not been able to do the stretch and folds, and you do just end up with a more dense loaf. How about if you're showing them that as I'm talking? So this is what stretching and folding looks like. Different people, again, if you look up sourdough or stretch and folds or anything like that on YouTube, you're going to see people do it really, really different. We found this works, and this process is also very, very different depending on if you use all white flour, or which you get this kind of stickier, what would you say, Vicky? Stickier. It is more elastic, you know, which is what I think most people are used to today with bread. We have become much more used to milling, even sometimes 500 grams. So all 500 grams milled flour, which means all parts of the seed, the flour is in there, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And the bran is what cuts. So when you're cutting all of that nice gluten stuff, then you're getting a flatter, more dense loaf, but so much healthier for you. So we've kind of done a lot of playing with increasing the health and nutritional value of sourdoughs by not doing pure white. Usually when we make them to, you know, to give to people or to sell, we'll put a little bit of the fresh grain ground, but combine it with the artisan azure white flour. Anything else there, Pat? Do you want to go over any of this and show the difference?
After you stretch and fold, make sure you rinse off with cold
In the sink. Miss Vicky taught us that, huh? That's better for your drains. So after you've done a stretch and fold, your hands are going to be covered with sour. I hate to throw it away, honestly. I go out on the porch when the chickens are there after it's dried on my hands, and I just rub my hands together and let the sourdough starter fall out. The chickens are going crazy. Huh? I do that, don't I? You do that to sometime too. What were you going to say?
Say that I also wet my hands prior to doing my stretch and folds, because if your hands are wet, the dough is less likely to stick on there. So wet your hands. And then problem with sourdough starter and the dough, if it goes down your drain, it doesn't wash down completely and will begin to create layers of dough in your drains. And we just recently discovered that in ours. We took everything apart, and there was, as much as I try to wash everything off very carefully, I put stuff into the trash or into my compost bin. There was a layer of sourdough in our drain in the kitchen sink and down further. So we had to get all that out of there. So
We've not experienced that yet.
So I will, not nice word, but I'll speak as the idiot in the room. So if you missed all of that, you just mix all the flour, water, everything together and let it sit for a while, however many hours, an hour or something like that. And then stretch and fold every half an hour, 3 or 4 times. And then you can let it sit.
This part.
Yep.
You're like taking most of it.
That's what I was about to say. We should do the starter as well.
Show you. So come on over. If we come on over, so this is an active starter, and I did actually just take some a couple hours ago. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do that, but it is pretty active, and you can actually see by looking at the side of the jar, kind of bubbles and stuff in it. I'm going to be honest though. There are times in our busy life. Can you open this one, son? There are times in our busy life where we don't always have that, and we need a loaf of bread. And you know what Heather does? I break all the rules, and I have even used discard, which is something that had been taken off that. Vicky is dying here. But you know what it is though, is when you have 3 kids running around, you have chickens to be fed, you have pigs to be fed. I will say at the beginning, it got more overwhelming, and I realized how awesome this was because you can play with it. And even if you break it, it's so forgiving. It's so forgiving. If you don't have kids, you'll find you're busy. Yes.
But
So
you discard and you leave that thing.
we do.
That made that.
And that, so we use this for that 100 grams. And technically it's more like 50 to 100 grams. We like to use 100 grams. Yes. So of sourdough discard, how much is it? It's about 1/4 cup. I've found. I use my 1/4 cup when I'm doing that. And you'll find, I mean, we do this all the time for math, palmistry. It's approximately 5 cups. Each cup has about 100 grams in it. We use a scale. We invested in a scale, and we do by grams. I don't know why. It's just how I learned a couple of years ago, the girlfriend that taught me. And this is about the 350 grams of water when we fill it with water. I've learned, right, Miss Ree, that a pint is about the 350 grams. And you guys can come over and watch us actually do this. Yes, please.
Yep. So you add flour and water. You let it sit there for a while. Like if you're first making your starter, yep, you just mix flour and water, equal parts, let it sit there for a day. Next day, you take out most of it and put in flour and water. Let it sit and it makes a starter. I'm going. And then you keep doing that for a while. Then once you want to keep it going, you've got to do the same process. You've got to take out starter. So if you're making bread, rock on, use the 100 grams for making bread. If not, you take it out and put it in a jar somewhere else and then keep feeding it. So the starter forever, you're going to take out most of it and just put in a little 1/4 cup of flour and a 1/4 cup of water.
So what do I do then?
What do you do when you want to make bread? Well, can I make this?
Go.
Yes, so you're gonna, and we can get you this recipe and we can get you a copy of all those slides, but the easiest thing really is this is a learning experience for my boys because we're talking about presentations and what is really important when we're doing presentations. I think demonstration is incredibly important. So if I were doing this here now, I would have my bowl, empty bowl. I would put it on my scale. And by the way, yes, you can say, you guys, in my opinion, it's up to you. once you get into this, you're going to want your own starters. And we even started some first with einkorn, with rye, with all these things. I killed them. But anyway, so I've killed numerous ones. We started a sourdough cemetery. Just kidding.
If you put the sourdough starter in the fridge, you only have to feed it once.
Once a week. And I'm going to be honest with you there again. This is another time where it's going to be your journey with your sourdough. I have seen people keep those, and you'll look at Farmhouse on Boone, who's a mother of 7. It makes me look sad. And she has kept her sourdough starter. She's talked about this numerous times, in there for months with no feeding in her refrigerator, and it's fine. I've kept my sourdough. We usually keep 1, 2, 3 with all the baking Patrick's doing right now, 3 at a time, because you're going to want them at different stages to do another loaf once you've put some in the oven. So you don't have to be like us and keep this on the counter. Many people, I think Vicky does, you bake once a week. You feed your starter once a week and bake once a week, 2 loaves at a time. And then you put it back in the fridge. And do you put it back in the fridge fed, or after taking some out and putting it? You don't feed it again until you bake it again. Okay. She's left her starter alone in the fridge for 3 weeks while she's on vacation, and come back and feed it, and it's just fine. So
Get back. Put your empty bowl on the.
yeah. So let's pretend this is empty. And my sorry, I should have just said it. What I would say to all of you is, if you want to try this and get started, don't start. This is just my opinion. You can do what you want, but don't start. We have the directions on how to do your own sourdough starter. Do you know what you do? And a friend did for me. You just come get some at my house, right? Vicky's done that for me several times. It's hard to make because you've never done it before, and you're starting off with this process that's kind of overwhelming. Whereas if you're happy with the person's, yes, when we first started kombucha, yes, that's right. You don't know what to expect,
I'll just have to say that my brother did his own starter. And somewhere along the line, he somehow must have contaminated, because with his first loaf of bread, it made him very sick. He got almost like a, gastro thing. So something went wrong in that process, and he was following it, but somewhere along the line, it got contaminated. So that's the only time I've ever heard of that. And then after that, he did it again, and it worked fine.
He's in California, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And yeah, wow, that's awesome. And I can say this, that we've probably contaminated ours, and praise God, we've never been sick by this. I find actually that I think our tummies are stronger because they can just take so much more, because you are constantly, every day we're bombarding our bacteria, our microbiome with good bacteria, that if you have bad bacteria, it just takes over, like you have kombucha, it does the same thing. So all of those times that you're introducing new strains of bacteria to your gut, it helps you to fight off the bad. So why?
Stream today.
Oh dear. That's what happens when you send John mountain biking. Oh dear. So we have our scale. You've gotten some sourdough starter from your neighbors, and we're on grams, right? So you put your scale on, we zeroed it out. What happened? Thank you, Pat. Yeah. So you put in, it's about a pint size glass, 350 grams of water. Then I put in my sourdough starter, right? I use 100 grams. You can use 50 to 100 grams, and you can play with that. Put that in. Then you put in 500 grams of flour and 11 grams of salt, or Miss Allison Ross says, we forget the salt, what's going to happen?
It's going to be a sad loaf.
It's going to be a sad loaf, right? And we've done that before, huh? Once. That didn't happen again, did it? Mm-mm. You can't use an iodized salt, because what does iodine do? It kills that bacteria, which is what is your yeast. So you must use a Himalayan sea salt or a Redmond salt. We use Redmond. We use nothing but Redmond anyway. I've used both. I've used both. I think most recipes and most people would say to you to use fine. Also, Celtic salt is lovely.
Pink salt.
Himalayan. Redmond is from a mine, yeah, bottom of an ocean out west. Yeah. Yeah, so it's super good for you, super good for you. Yeah. No, that's Azure. Well, you can look up Redmond sea salt. You can buy it online. Yes, Azure's wonderful. Start small and then you go insane. Yes. Yes.
Like if you put water in it and dissolve it all, it'll leave a little red thing at the bottom, like the mineral.
Just like when you ferment,
Doing something wrong, exactly.
just like when the fermented carrots that you've seen, right, at our house, it's all red at the bottom. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry. So
Yeah, just me way, say. I don't have all the stuff. I don't have a scale. I just have a measuring cup. I deal in cups. I don't deal in grams. Can you explain that same thing to me? I've got a glass bowl. And okay.
yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
and then my other thing is I have sea salt, but it's Morton's sea salt. It's not iodized. Yes.
Redmond salt is at Walmart. Yeah.
Right now, in my hand, I have Morton's sea salt. Oh, yeah.
I know what you mean. The only thing I would say is make sure there's no caking agents in it. So oftentimes when you see things like any baking product, like baking powder, baking soda, we're losing this. There's all caking agents. Yeah. I think you're okay. That's good. That's good. Yes.
Salt shaker, because it's caking, so it must not have that caking.
Okay. Yes, John will write that down for you if you're trying to do in cups and stuff. I will say this was very easy for me to learn and it does help. I feel like it helps. I don't know. I just feel like it's more accurate, Yeah.
And scales are cheap.
The scales are cheap. We'll get you one, Grammy. He's buying the sourdough from you. Yes, you can. You can do it in cups and many people do. And if you looked up, like I said, you get 1,000,001 ways to make sourdough. This is just the way that I have found with a busy family. I can do it and it's very forgiving. If I can tell I've let my product sit on the counter for too long, we turn it into pizza crust. We just never throw our stuff away. I never throw my discard, the starter, of course, you wouldn't throw that away. I never throw anything away, even if this is overproofed and you come home and it looks kind of like your starter jar where you fed it too much and it came out and over or whatever. We use that always. Sometimes we have to add flour. Sometimes we roll it out and make cinnamon rolls out of it by just putting some cinnamon and sugar in the middle, rolling up whatever we have on a really floured board if it got too wet, and we just never throw anything away. Discard. Yeah, that's what you took away every day if you have it on the counter, or once a week if you have it in the fridge. You can't actually, with the discard, did you guys go over that yet? What our favorite discard recipes are? We can get you guys copies of that. Okay.
So you can just like put it in any baking thing or find a specific sourdough discard recipe.
Which is what these are made with today. For the bread, ideally, you use an active starter. Yes, I have used this because it doesn't rise as much, but my kids have never not eaten a loaf of this stuff. Ooh. Yes. So this is flour and water. Keep on holding. I know.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I don't know what discard is. What exactly does that mean? Where did it come from?
So you have your starter, and then every day, if it's on the counter, you take out all of it except for a tablespoon. The part you take out, you can either use it right away, or basically the stuff you take out is your discard. If it's like fresh, you can put it into a loaf, but if it sits, it just becomes this, or like if you don't use it right after you take it out. And then you just put more flour and water, and then your starter stays the same.
So PJ, explain this. If you have this beautiful active starter and you have it on your counter because you thought you were going to use it that day, but this sits all the way till Miss Amy comes home at night and it is now looking really flat like that, what should be done? Explain that process.
You just take out all except for a tablespoon. All this.
If
You-
this, if your active starter ended up looking like this because it hadn't been fed in a while, take out a whole lot, right? There's different people who say different things about that. We like to take out all but a tablespoon. Okay. And then you add, you know, for us, big family, a cup of flour, a cup of water. Stir it up. I find that I often use it even too soon, a couple hours. Some people leave it 3-4 hours, but basically until it looks like that. That is what's called an active starter. That means like your packet of yeast you'd use from the store. That is exactly what you've created, except it's all natural. Who knows what yeast is?
I think what you're getting at though is you're doing that every day to keep this starter going. So sometimes you're just going to take this out and not have a use for it. That's why they call it discard. You're not making bread right away. So you took it out because you're going to keep this going, but now you've got something left over. So Heather will stick it in the fridge. Correct, that you take away. So you need to use discard recipes to use up your discard. So that, yeah, because it's less rising. So if you put that into bread, your bread's not going to rise as much, but you can put it in pancakes, but you can put it in waffles. You can put it in crackers, tortillas. Exactly. We make a lot of crackers, tortillas, we make waffles, and that can sit in the fridge for a week or two or whatever. You can build it up. Exactly. You can just build it up until you have a purpose for it. And then you're like, oh, I can use, yeah, in the fridge for as long as you want.
Harry, did you study that at all? How long before the discard turns to alcohol? No, I don't know that.
It would cook out, but it would cook the alcohol, cook out anything that you make, right? The alcohol.
True.
You're not using it raw.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, you never, this is not something that you'd ever eat raw. This is not something you'd ever use in a recipe and not cook. That's true. So basically, just to go through this again, we put the empty bowl. I'm not going to go through all the weights. We go through, it's on the scale. Yeah, I want to stay with grams. We'll give Grammy Laura that so she can try that. Because you can give somebody that sheet. It's, you're right. Can I be honest? With this, I'm not measuring this out to make a loaf of bread. I'm just measuring this out when I feed it, like with a cup of water, a cup of flour, to feed it, to get it to rise, to be the yeast that I want. I don't measure this out in grams. And I never use the same amount. If I know I'm only going to use a small amount that day, Marie will only equal portions is what I use. Now, you'll find other people who do not use equal portions and they'll use more water than they do flour or more flour than water if they want it and it's thicker. We went through that at one point, didn't we?
This, it's how everything wants the dough to turn out. And also the humidity in the air, the temperature in the house. It can be a real science experiment.
But because I'm not a scientist, does not mean that this can't work. It just means that sometimes I have failed loaves. But I'll be honest with you, PJ, we've made 20 loaves in the last week and our loaves have, praise God, they're pretty consistent. You know what I mean? I
think we've made more than that.
So I guess what I'm saying is we are not scientists And you can make pretty consistent loaves. Every once in a while, you just get one that fails and Jason will eat it. So,
It's up this tall instead of that tall and it tastes.
yes.
By myself. Will it go bad? How long it is before it starts going bad?
It depends who you are. Some people like, I grew up in an Italian family. There was always crusty bread, sourdough, from my mia nonna, my nonni, on the counter because there was no preservatives and no additives in that bread. So if you go to buy a Nissen loaf at the store, right, you're getting, thank you. You're getting a lot. Do you want to answer this? So basically I find we make bread virtually every day. And we eat it usually on that day. So I'll make it in the morning is ideal. And then we'll eat it for dinner that night because it is best if it sits until it's cool. If you cut into a hot loaf, that's when you're going to get gummy inside. It works with yeast bread to cut into a hot loaf. It does not. Do you find that too, Vicky? Let it cool for at least an hour. And we try for it to be hours, but so yes. Yes. Well, you can, oh yes. These have been frozen in my fridge. Like when I'm getting ready for one of the kids' birthday parties and I'm going to need 6 to 8 loaves in there, I'll start like even the weeks before for something like that. But you can keep, I've kept mine in there for a month and a half. We go through them. Yeah. So excuse me, what did I say? In a freezer, sorry. If this were on the counter, right, this is going to start getting harder by the day. But I have never
You made it on Saturday and I ate mine the last 3 pieces. Yes, I ate 3 pieces. Last night. It was 3 days old and it was still nice and soft because what I did is I kept it wrapped right off in saran wrap so there was no air. Maybe if you keep it in the brown paper bag, it might dry out more. But probably. And when I put it in the bag.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Literally, one fresh lasted like 2 months. It does get a little harder, but I like it that way.
So basically, it'll just get a little bit harder every day. And if you cut it and it's a little bit too hard, it's really good for French toast.
Yeah, we have never had a loaf go moldy. I have never had a loaf go moldy. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like the milk thing where it doesn't go bad. If it's raw milk, it doesn't go bad. It goes different. You know what I mean? We use cow. I'm serious. It doesn't go because it hasn't been homogenized and pasteurized, which are these processes that change it and make it so you're taking out all that good bacteria that actually in the milk fight off. Right, you're doing the same thing. This has so much bacteria in it from good bacteria from the starter. I've not had them go bad, but at the same time, we do eat them quite fast. But Pat's right. French toast, we've had them. Yeah, we've had them for a week. Yeah, but we would be cutting that and putting it in the toaster or making it into garlic bread. I often do that with a hard loaf. I'll take the whole loaf. If it went too long, cut it right in half, smear butter, and then I don't try not to use foil, but I'll put it back in my Dutch oven with the cover on it and oh gosh, that goes. Harry loves hard crusted bread. He would say this is not even anywhere near done enough. He would want that in the oven for 10 more minutes. He wants it almost burnt on the outside and then inside where you make it through and it just, just soft on the inside, but on the outside. Yeah. Him and Grammy Laura fight over that. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, Grammy Laura likes the soft, Harry likes the hard. Yes. So I do find that the measurement with the scale is easier. And I will say you will get so used to it. So bowl goes on, zero out the weight of the bowl, put in your 350 grams water. We use 100 starter. You can use 50 to 100 and play with that of an active starter. Put that in. A really good sign, I should mention this, that it is active. If you want to kind of play with this and you're making a loaf for some special occasion, you're going to go over this. Yeah. Can I tell them anyway? You want to? Don't tell them. It's a secret. Okay. I'm not going to tell you that part. So you put in the water and then you put in the starter, then 500 grams of flour, and then 11 or 12 grams of salt and mix it together. You're going to get This is, you could tell this has already been stretched and folded. I'll actually do another one of those now. Do you want to hold this for me for a minute? So we do 3 to 4, depending on what we have time for that night. I lift the bowl right off the ground, right off the counter. This, I do a turn. If I go like this, and usually I'm alone. I usually just go like, I'm an angry sourdough baker. I don't know if you ever do this, Vicky, but I do. I just fun to play with it. And then I basically just kind of play with it for a while. Just put it back in, get what I can off my hands. And then
She got more start dough on her hands because she didn't wet them. But when I wet them, so I didn't really get much.
don't wet them very often because I'm usually going fast. So 3 to 4 times stretching and folding. And then if you were using a banneton, we did not do this for, thank you, Pat. We did not do this for probably the first year. We did not use. I was like, what are these things that came with my starter kit? This is too complex for us. And then one day Patrick did it. And it was so cool because you do get these. No, that's what gives those lines, okay? Now I don't know if any of you got a boulie where it didn't have those lines. It just, because we had to skip that process, we made it into a, yeah, I probably can't show them right now, but there is, once this is done, you've done the 4 stretch and folds, you let it sit for, depending on how hot it is, I let it sit for probably 3 to 4 hours. What do you do, Vicky? 3 to 4 hours. And then I put it out into a rectangle on a floured surface. I then do similar to a stretch and fold, but laying down. I take one end and I fold it to the middle, take the other end, fold it to the middle, and then I begin, especially if I'm using this more of a loaf one, I fold it in and I kind of push it down and I'm folding it in if it's the circular one like this, and I'm kind of squeezing the dough like I was making this into a boulie right now, kind of together like that. And then I lift it.
Eventually the bottom will be the top of it. Stretch it out like this to make the bottom nice and flat.
So it would be in this pretty little thing like this. And after I've done it on a floured surface, put it right into the banneton. And sometimes I only have it in that banneton for even an hour, just to give it those pretty. Yes, you could. Sometimes if I don't have time for all that prettiness, I just put it right into a boulie on a floured surface and I turn it over then, right? Because I don't want the part I just squeezed on there. I turn it over and put it on a piece of the Azure non-toxic parchment paper. Yeah, I just hate the thought of putting it on like something with plastic on it or something. So put it onto the parchment paper and then lift that into a Dutch oven. Or do you use parchment paper if you're doing it in a loaf pan? Because you've now turned to loaf pans, right? You just oil it and put rice flour? Okay. Can it be oiled without rice flour? Yeah, but can you use just olive oil? Have you ever used just olive oil? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you could put it in a loaf pan if you want like a sandwich bread. Like I said, I'm really used to using the Dutch ovens. We cook it in the oven at 450 for 30 minutes with the cover of a Dutch oven on. And then we take the cover, and we have my timer, it goes off. I take the cover off on top of the stove. Yeah, leave it in I know, but Mr. Huter asked while we were actually here doing it. And they'll love to hear it again. They'll love to hear it again. Not the banneton because I have my parchment paper under it. So, nope. So, oh, I see what you're saying. So if I have put it in my banneton, then basically all we're going to do is dump this out onto the parchment paper. You have this beautiful, right? It looks like that, right? So you dump that onto your parchment paper, you lift your parchment paper into your deep covered baker, and that parchment paper and all goes into your oven. Or you can do oil and flour in a regular. Oh no, it goes so pretty. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You can make it pretty unless you're a hooter.
This is also where she says we generally leave it 3 or 4 hours. That would be what we want to do. Our actual loaves of bread never do. And every single day she comes in and says, I didn't have time, or I left it all day long, or I had to put it in the fridge and we left it overnight and it's going to be horrible. And it's never been horrible.
So,
Cardboard.
so even if you don't leave it in there for long enough, it won't really rise that much. And it'll just kind of be like really small. Once you put it in the oven with the lid on, you cook it for a while, then you take the lid off and it rises in the oven and it like opens up like on all these big like openings that we have. That was just one little line that we cut out, and then it just rises up and just explodes kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, or adjective. Yep. So it's sort of like half this size when you put it in, and as it bakes, got little cuts at the top. As it bakes, it grows. These cuts spread out.
And both and same as theirs does in duck
Right, but I
oven.
still support it, right? But, you know, don't support it, then they're going to expand, there's no.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you do a cut on top.
You don't know where it's gonna go exactly. You're not good. If you don't do that, then you never know what's gonna do.
It doesn't really rise as much.
My last starter was winter in my house, degrees. So if I wrapped it in towel, hoping it would stay warm enough to this time. When we put the proofing bowl in the oven, like when we turn the oven on 200 or something, just your oven's would be good. That's the idea. Like house is too cold. Put it in the oven. That's enough to keep it warm enough to actually for your regular, for the regular. Yeah.
And we put ours next to our wood stove. Yeah, I try not to put these next to, it's too close to heat because I just find it makes my bread stick to them. And boy, is that depressing. When you dumped it out and you're going like this and trying to get it to come out, and you're going like this, trying to little by little get it to come out without ripping. Oh,
And then you'll have nice rings, and then one spot it'll just be like pulled out and ripped.
we tried rice. We didn't find it made it. We didn't find that it did anything different than the white. We do every time, and Harry doesn't like it. Now, this is another thing. We always get the flour all over ours. I love it. I think it's artisan looking. Harry does not like it. He comes over with a basting brush and tries to brush it off, you know? And I don't think Vicky uses it. Vicky uses something else, right?
Uses rice.
Oh, my
Yeah.
Rice. Yeah.
Uses rice.
Yeah.
The other thing I use for germinating I used to just seed germinating nuts.
To put my bread on in the wintertime for it to rise. And that works really, yeah, it works really well.
So if you're trying to germinate seeds or get seeds to grow, you know how like in a greenhouse, they have a
Put it on.
yeah. That's us. Yeah. Yes, I like it warm. I don't like cold houses. So with Marie and I home during the day, we like a warm house. So it usually does just fine, but TJ. You know, these baskets, you don't clean them often. You know, every once in a while, if I had a bread that's stuck, then there are special brushes, almost like a little wire brush, but you want to get the special one. And I use that to do a clean out. Honestly, I don't do it often though, because
You
it's
could use a fork prong.
prong. Patrick's used a fork prong, and he is my baker, so yeah. John scraped him out, but I don't often. Yeah, and you don't find that they get disgusting. I mean, these sit on my counter, you know, just in a bowl. Yeah. Any other questions while we're here, or we'll let the kids continue? Just so everyone knows too, but PJ is has opened these up for donation after if you want. These are just toaster waffles. a regular waffle recipe that we do this all the time. We take our starter and poured it in, even though it didn't call for it, and they come out just fine. We took our discard. Yes, yes, a great way to use it.
Just say one thing here, Marie, if anyone's listening, Marie. If there's someone that sews really well, you get this waxed fabric and you can make nice bread bags out of it that will keep your sourdough as fresh as the day you made it.
Waxed bread bags?
Just like this, they're bread bags that are made of this material, and you just put your sourdough right in there, and it's that's right. Can you imagine?
I'll send you the link of the company that does it, so you can see what you do.
We'll send it to you. Yes. And you can also do linen. We just do linen bags. Those are the bags that you always see us, that we probably delivered them to different people with them. And you use those over and over. Yeah. Except it doesn't have wax on it. But I'm gonna hustle. Okay, will you take that up? Back up to PJ and you.
There.
Come on down. Key factors. Temperature is a game changer in sourdough. Aim for a dough temp of 75 to 80 degrees to balance fermentation speed. Warmer dough ferments faster, giving a milder flavor, while cooling dough slows down for a tangier result. So if you have a wood stove going, you can just kind of, or you're in a hurry, you can put it next to it and it'll just rise faster. Timing is just as critical. Under ferment and your loaf will be dense and it won't rise as much. And if you over ferment, it'll rise a lot and then it'll kind of pop and collapse. And then that's not good. Yeah, mom turns into pizza crust. Hydration, or the water to flour ratio, affects texture. Higher hydration creates an open, airy crumb. Crumb is how big the holes are inside, fluffier. Keep a close eye on these factors, and you'll master the art of perfect loaves. It's like what? It's like conducting an orchestra of dough. Ready to fine-tune your bake? Scoring is where art meets function. Slashing the dough's surface controls how it expands in the oven and adds a beautiful design. Use a sharp blade or lame to make a 1/4 of an inch deep cuts at 45-degree angle for clean, controlled bursts. So basically, oh, never mind. Baking in a preheated Dutch oven at 450 degrees traps steam, giving you that crispy golden crust. Baking for 40 to 50 minutes, removing the lid halfway to let the crust brown. If you don't have a Dutch oven, a baking stone with a pan of water works too. Scoring and baking are your final flourishes for a perfect loaf. So we usually just do one line across the top, just like that. And sometimes mom does other stuff too.
Okie dokie. Got some sourdough recipes to get started. So our basic loaf.
You might want to take a picture of this.
So, okie dokie. Okie dokie. So some variations are once you've mastered the basics, you can mix it up by swapping 20 or to a half of your flour for like whole wheat flour to get more uh, nutty, hearty flavor. Rye flour makes it more earthy and it's a little bit more dense. You can also add in stuff like sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, walnuts, like dried cranberries, stuff like that. Um, you just have to keep the add-ins at under 20% of the flour weight to avoid like a heavy loaf. And experimenting can be part of the fun part because however you want your loaf, you can make it like that. Some tips are make sure to use your starter when it's at its peak for maximum rising power. Make sure to stretch and fold it if you want maximum rise. Um, if you want precision, you weigh all the ingredients, and if you guess, it'll still work out most of the time, but it won't be as perfect as if you weigh it every time. If your kitchen's warm, then you can shorten your fermentation times, and if it's cool, you can extend it. For sticky dough, you can wet your hands instead of adding extra flour to keep the hydration right. And keep practicing, and you'll get a feel for your dough's personality. And that's it. Yep, that's it.
Any questions?
Yeah.